The hunt begins. The first enemy sniper round cracked past Rodriguez's head with a distinctive supersonic snap that every combat veteran recognizes. She immediately rolled to her left, seeking cover behind a large boulder, while her mind processed the trajectory and timing of the shot. Her training kicked in automatically, calculating distance, wind, and the most likely position of the shooter based on the sound and the near miss. Through her earpiece, she could hear the chaos erupting in the compound below. Captain Mitchell's voice was strained, but controlled as he reported contact with multiple enemy positions. Sergeant Chun was calling for immediate extraction, his voice tight with the realization that they had walked into a carefully prepared ambush. The sound of automatic weapons fire echoed off the mountain walls, making it difficult to determine exactly how many enemies they were facing. Rodriguez keyed her radio and spoke in the calm, measured tone that had earned her the respect of her teammates. She reported the sniper contact and her approximate location of the shooter, but before she could finish her transmission, another bullet struck the rock just inches from her head, showering her with stone fragments. The enemy sniper had her pinned down, and worse, he seemed to know exactly where she was hiding. From her position behind the boulder, Rodriguez could see muzzle flashes from at least 3 different locations around the compound. Her teammates were taking heavy fire from multiple directions, and she could see them seeking whatever cover they could find in the rocky terrain. The extraction helicopters were still 20 minutes out, assuming they could even land in a hot landing zone with enemy snipers controlling the high ground. She needed to move, but every time she shifted position, another round would crack past her location. The enemy sniper was good, very good, and he was keeping her effectively neutralized while his companions engaged her teammates below. Rodriguez realized that she was facing a professional, someone with training and equipment that matched or possibly exceeded her own capabilities. Using a small mirror from her kit, Rodriguez carefully examined the terrain behind her without exposing herself to direct fire. She spotted a depression in the ground about 50 meters to her rear that would provide cover and a different angle on the suspected sniper position. The movement would be dangerous, requiring her to cross open ground while under observation, but staying in her current position was not an option. Rodriguez made her decision quickly. She pulled a smoke grenade from her kit and threw it to her right, hoping to create enough confusion to mask her movement. As the purple smoke began to billow across the rocky ground, she sprinted toward the depression, her rifle clutched tightly as she ran in a low crouch. The sniper's next shot was close, but the smoke had affected his aim just enough to give her the precious seconds she needed to reach cover. From her new position, Rodriguez had a better view of the terrain where she suspected the first sniper was located. Through her scope, she could see a rock formation about 800 meters away that would provide excellent cover and fields of fire. As she watched, a brief reflection caught her eye, confirming her suspicion. The enemy sniper was there, and now she had a target. But before she could line up her shot, gunfire erupted from a completely different direction. A second enemy sniper had opened fire from a position on the opposite ridge, and Rodriguez could see the bullets impacting around her teammates' positions with deadly accuracy. Sergeant Chin's voice came through the radio, reporting that one of their team members had been hit and needed immediate medical attention. Rodriguez faced an impossible choice. She had located one enemy sniper and was in position to engage him, but a second sniper was actively targeting her teammates from a different location. She couldn't engage both targets simultaneously, and every second she hesitated meant more danger for her team. Her training had prepared her for many scenarios, but not for being outnumbered by enemy snipers while her teammates were pinned down in a kill zone. She made her choice based on the immediate threat to her team. The second sniper was actively engaging her teammates, while the first sniper seemed focused on keeping her suppressed. Rodriguez shifted her aim toward the second sniper's position, using her scope to scan the ridge line for any sign of the shooter. The range was over 1,000 meters, pushing the limits of her weapon system and requiring perfect calculation of wind speed and bullet drop. As she settled in her firing position, Rodriguez forced herself to block out the sounds of battle below and focus entirely on her target. Her breathing slowed and steadied, her heart rate decreased, and her world narrowed to the small circle visible through her scope. This was the moment that all her training had prepared her for, the convergence of skill, equipment, and determination that separated professional snipers from ordinary soldiers. The enemy sniper made his mistake by shifting position just as Rodriguez had her crosshairs aligned with his suspected location. She saw the movement, a dark shape against the lighter rock, and immediately adjusted her aim point. Her finger took up the slack on her trigger as she made her final calculations for wind and distance. The shot would be one of the most difficult of her career, but her teammates were counting on her. Rodriguez fired, and through her scope, she watched as her bullet found its target. The enemy sniper's rifle flew from his hands as he crumpled behind his position, and the suppressing fire that had been raining down on her teammates suddenly stopped. She allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction before immediately shifting her attention back to the first sniper, who had undoubtedly seen her muzzle flash and was now adjusting his own aim. The first enemy sniper's response was immediate and accurate. His bullet struck the ground just in front of Rodriguez's position, sending rock splinters in her face and forcing her to duck behind cover. But now she had his exact position, and she could see that he was moving to get a better angle on her location. The deadly game of cat and mouse was about to enter its next phase. As Rodriguez prepared for her next engagement, she heard Captain Mitchell's voice on the radio reporting additional enemy contacts. There weren't just 2 enemy snipers targeting them. There were more, potentially many more. Her teammates were reporting sniper fire from at least 4 different directions, meaning that she was facing a coordinated team of enemy marksmen who had turned the entire area into a killing field. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Her team wasn't just facing a routine ambush. They had been deliberately drawn into a trap by an enemy force that included multiple trained snipers. The intelligence that had brought them here had been compromised, or worse, it had been bait designed to lure them into an engagement where the enemy held every advantage. Rodriguez looked through her scope at the terrain around the compound and began to understand the true scope of what they were facing. The enemy snipers had positioned themselves to create overlapping fields of fire that covered every possible approach to and from the target area. Her teammates were trapped in a kill zone with limited cover, and the extraction helicopters would be sitting ducks if they tried to land while enemy snipers controlled the high ground. But Rodriguez also realized something else as she studied the enemy positions through her scope. While the enemy had planned their ambush well, they had made one critical error. They had expected to face a normal Ranger team, and they had positioned themselves to counter conventional tactics. They hadn't planned for a sniper of her caliber operating from an unexpected position, and that oversight was about to become their downfall. She keyed her radio and spoke to Captain Mitchell in the calm, professional tone that had become her trademark. She informed him that she had identified multiple enemy sniper positions and that she had a plan to neutralize them systematically. But the plan would require her teammates to maintain their current positions and trust her to eliminate the threats one by one, even though it meant they would have to endure continued enemy fire while she worked. Captain Mitchell's response was immediate and unquestioning. He trusted Rodriguez's skills and judgment, and he knew that her plan represented their best chance of survival. As she prepared to begin the most challenging engagement of her career, Rodriguez drew strength from that trust and from a knowledge that 7 of the finest soldiers she had ever known were counting on her to get them home alive. #The Final Stand Rodriguez began her systematic elimination of the enemy snipers with the methodical precision that had made her one of the most respected marksmen in the Rangers. She had identified 8 distinct firing positions based on muzzle flashes, bullet trajectories, and her understanding of how professional snipers would position themselves for maximum effectiveness. Each target would require a different approach, and she would have to move constantly to avoid giving the remaining snipers time to coordinate their fire against her. Her third target was positioned in a rocky outcropping approximately 900 meters to her southeast. This sniper had been targeting the compound's eastern wall, where most of her teammates had taken cover after the initial assault. Rodriguez could see the occasional muzzle flash from his position, and she noticed that he fired in a regular pattern, suggesting either overconfidence or insufficient training in concealment techniques. Rodriguez moved to a new firing position that gave her a clear line of sight to the target area. The movement required her to cross open ground while two other enemy snipers were still active, but she used the terrain expertly, moving during moments when the enemy snipers were focused on targets below rather than scanning for her position. Her camouflage and fieldcraft training served her well as she virtually disappeared into the rocky landscape. From her new position, Rodriguez waited for the enemy sniper to reveal himself. She controlled her breathing and steadied her rifle, knowing that she would have only one opportunity before he detected her position and returned fire. When the muzzle flash came, she was ready. Her shot was perfect, and she watched through her scope as the enemy sniper slumped forward, his rifle clattering down the rocky slope. The remaining enemy snipers began to realize that they were being systematically eliminated by a single shooter. Their fire became less coordinated and more frantic as they tried to locate Rodriguez's position while maintaining pressure on her teammates below. This change in their tactics gave Rodriguez the opportunity she needed to begin moving more aggressively. Her fourth target was the most challenging yet. This sniper had positioned himself in a location that provided excellent concealment and multiple escape routes. Worse, he seemed to understand that he was being hunted and had begun changing positions after each shot. Rodriguez would need to anticipate his movement and position herself where she could intercept him as he moved to a new firing position. Rodriguez studied the terrain around the enemy sniper's last known position and identified 3 likely locations where he might move. Based on her understanding of sniper tactics and the specific terrain features, she determined that one position was most likely and began moving to intercept. The stalk required her to cover nearly 200 meters of open ground while remaining invisible to the remaining enemy snipers. As she moved, Rodriguez could hear the continuing firefight below. Her teammates were holding their positions despite taking intermittent sniper fire, trusting her to eliminate the threats that had them pinned down. The sound of their voices on the radio, calm and professional despite the desperate nature of their situation, gave her additional motivation to complete her mission. The enemy sniper appeared exactly where Rodriguez had predicted, moving quickly between rock formations while carrying his rifle at the ready. She had positioned herself along his route of movement, and had her crosshairs on the narrow gap he would have to cross. When he appeared in her scope, Rodriguez took the shot without hesitation. Her bullet caught him mid-stride, and he fell immediately, his rifle spinning away across the rocky ground. Rodriguez immediately began moving again, knowing that her muzzle flash had revealed her position to the remaining enemy snipers. As she moved, she could hear bullets striking the rocks where she had been positioned just seconds before. The enemy snipers were now actively hunting her, but their desperation was making them careless, and careless snipers make mistakes that can be exploited. Her fifth target made such a mistake. In his eagerness to locate and engage Rodriguez, he exposed too much of his position while scanning for her through his scope. Rodriguez spotted the reflection of sunlight off his scope lens and immediately identified his exact location. The shot was over 1,200 meters, requiring her to account for significant bullet drop and wind drift, but her calculations were perfect. The enemy sniper never knew what hit him. With 3 enemy snipers remaining, Rodriguez could sense a change in the dynamics of the engagement. The enemy fire was becoming less accurate and less coordinated as the surviving snipers began to realize that they were facing an opponent who was systematically destroying their team. Fear and uncertainty began to affect their performance, and Rodriguez pressed her advantage ruthlessly. The sixth enemy sniper tried to relocate to a position that would give him a better angle on Rodriguez's suspected location. But Rodriguez had been watching his position through her scope, and when he moved, she was ready. Her shot caught him as he tried to cross between two rock formations, and he fell without reaching his intended destination. By now, the remaining two enemy snipers were showing clear signs of panic. Their fire became wild and uncontrolled as they abandoned their tactical positions and began searching frantically for Rodriguez. This breakdown in discipline made them easy targets for a sniper of Rodriguez's caliber, who had maintained her composure and tactical thinking throughout the engagement. The seventh enemy sniper made the fatal error of breaking cover completely in his desperation to locate Rodriguez. He exposed himself on a ridgeline, silhouetted against the sky as he scanned the terrain below with his rifle scope. Rodriguez's shot was almost leisurely in its precision, and the enemy sniper toppled backward off the ridge, his rifle falling silently into the valley below. Rodriguez could now focus all her attention on the final enemy sniper. This opponent had shown more discipline than his companions, maintaining his position and continuing to engage targets below rather than panicking and exposing himself. Rodriguez realized that this final sniper was probably the team leader, the most experienced and dangerous of the enemy marksmen. The final engagement became a true duel between expert snipers. Both combatants understood the terrain, the equipment, and the tactics involved. Rodriguez knew that her opponent was somewhere within a specific area of terrain, but he had excellent concealment and had not revealed his position through movement or muzzle flash. She would have to force him to reveal himself, and that meant taking calculated risks. Rodriguez began a careful stalk toward the enemy sniper's suspected position. She moved with infinite patience, using every fold in the ground and every rock formation to remain invisible as she closed the distance. The stalk took over an hour, but Rodriguez knew that patience was often the difference between success and failure in sniper operations. When she finally spotted the enemy sniper, Rodriguez realized why he had been so difficult to locate. His position was expertly chosen, and his camouflage was nearly perfect. He was positioned in shadow, using natural terrain features to break up his outline, and he had shown remarkable discipline in not giving away his position through unnecessary movement. Rodriguez settled into a firing position less than 400 meters from her target. At this range, with a stationary target, there was no possibility of missing if she executed the shot properly. She controlled her breathing, steadied her rifle, and waited for the perfect moment. When the enemy sniper shifted slightly to get a better view of the terrain below, Rodriguez fired. Her final shot was perfect, ending the engagement and eliminating the last threat to her teammates. In the sudden silence that followed, Rodriguez could hear Captain Mitchell's voice on the radio, reporting that all enemy sniper fire had ceased and that the area was secure. The extraction helicopters were inbound, and her team would soon be heading home. As Rodriguez made her way back toward the compound, she reflected on what had just occurred. She had faced 8 enemy snipers in a coordinated ambush, and she had eliminated every single one of them through skill, determination, and the superior training that made the Rangers the elite force they were. Her teammates were alive because she had been able to rise to the challenge when they needed her most. The extraction went smoothly, with the helicopters landing in a secure area and the team exfiltrating without further contact. During the flight back to base, Rodriguez sat quietly among her teammates, processing the events of the day and the knowledge that she had just participated in one of the most challenging sniper engagements in recent military history. Captain Mitchell approached her during the flight and spoke words that she would remember for the rest of her life. He told her that her actions had not only saved the lives of 7 Rangers, but had demonstrated the kind of courage and skill that defined the very best of the military. Her performance under impossible odds had been nothing short of extraordinary. In the weeks that followed, Rodriguez's actions that day would become the subject of detailed analysis and study. Military historians and tacticians would examine the engagement as an example of how individual skill and determination could overcome overwhelming odds. But for Rodriguez herself, the most important outcome was simple and personal. Her teammates had gone home to their families, and that was worth more than any recognition or analysis. The mission had started as a routine operation to capture or eliminate a high-value target, but it had become something much more significant. It had become a testament to the power of expert training, unshakable determination, and the bonds of trust that exist between soldiers who have trained and fought together. Rodriguez had proven that sometimes one person in the right place at the right time with the right skills could indeed make all the difference in the world. As her helicopter disappeared into the distance, carrying her and her teammates back to safety, the mountain valley fell silent once more. The only evidence of the morning's dramatic events was the scattered equipment of 8 enemy snipers who had learned too late that they had underestimated their opponent. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez had faced impossible odds and had emerged victorious, adding her name to the ranks of military legends who had achieved the extraordinary when their comrades needed them most. The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain of the Afghan mountains as Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez checked her gear one final time. Her M24 sniper weapon system felt familiar in her hands, like an extension of her own body after countless hours of training and missions. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders, but it was a burden she had learned to carry with quiet confidence. Rodriguez had joined the Army Rangers 3 years earlier, one of the few women to make it through the grueling selection process. Her journey to this moment had been filled with doubts from others and sleepless nights questioning her own abilities. Growing up in a small Texas town, she had learned to shoot from her grandfather, a Korean War veteran who taught her that precision and patience were more valuable than speed and aggression. The mission briefing had been straightforward on paper. Intelligence reports indicated that a high-value target was hiding in a compound nestled between 2 mountain ridges. The target was believed to be coordinating attacks against coalition forces, and his capture or elimination was considered crucial for regional stability. What the briefing couldn't convey was the feeling in the air, the sense that something was different about this operation. Rodriguez's team consisted of 8 elite soldiers, each handpicked for their skills and experience. Team leader Captain James Mitchell had served 4 tours in Afghanistan and had earned the respect of every soldier under his command. Sergeant First Class David Chun was their communications specialist, a tech-savvy operator who could maintain contact with base even in the most challenging terrain. The rest of the team included explosive specialists, medics, and assault specialists, all united by their commitment to the mission and to each other. As they approached their target area in the pre-dawn darkness, Rodriguez felt the familiar mix of adrenaline and focus that came before every operation. Her role was to provide overwatch, positioning herself where she could observe the compound and surrounding area through her scope. Her training had taught her to read the landscape like a book, identifying potential threats and escape routes while remaining invisible to enemy eyes. The insertion went smoothly. 2 Black Hawk helicopters dropped the team at a landing zone 3 kilometers from their target, far enough away to avoid detection, but close enough to reach their objective before sunrise. The pilots wished them luck with subtle nods as the Rangers disappeared into the rocky terrain, their movements coordinated and silent. Rodriguez's designated position was on a ridge overlooking the compound from the north. The climb was steep and treacherous in the darkness, but she moved with practiced efficiency, her equipment secured to prevent any noise that might give away her position. As she settled into her firing position, she began the methodical process of range estimation and wind calculation that would determine the accuracy of any shots she might need to take. Through her scope, the compound appeared quiet. A few dim lights flickered in the main building, suggesting that the occupants were awake but trying to maintain a low profile. Rodriguez counted at least 6 structures within the compound walls, including what appeared to be a main house, several outbuildings, and guard positions at the corners of the perimeter wall. The rest of the team moved into position around the compound, each soldier taking their assigned role in the assault plan. Captain Mitchell's voice crackled softly through Rodriguez's earpiece, confirming that all teams were in position and ready to begin the operation. The plan called for a simultaneous breach from 3 sides, with Rodriguez providing covering fire and eliminating any threats that appeared during the assault. As the first rays of sunlight began to illuminate the mountain peaks around them, Rodriguez noticed movement in one of the guard towers. A figure appeared briefly in her scope, and she could see the distinctive outline of a rifle. Her finger moved to her trigger, ready to engage if the guard posed a threat to her teammates approaching from below. The compound suddenly erupted with activity. Lights came on in multiple buildings, and Rodriguez could see figures moving quickly between structures. Something had alerted the occupants to their presence, though she couldn't determine what had triggered their awareness. Through her earpiece, she heard Captain Mitchell's voice, calm but urgent, calling for the assault to begin immediately. Rodriguez watched through her scope as her teammates moved toward their breach points. The first explosion came from the eastern wall, where the demolitions team had placed their charges. The blast echoed across the mountain valley, and Rodriguez knew that stealth was no longer an option. Now it would come down to speed, precision, and the training that had been drilled into them through countless exercises. As her teammates poured through the breach in the compound wall, Rodriguez began scanning for targets. Her first shot came within seconds, dropping a guard who had appeared on a rooftop with an RPG launcher aimed at her advancing teammates. The crack of her rifle was followed by the distinctive sound of her bullet finding its target, and the guard crumpled without firing his weapon. The battle for the compound had begun, but Rodriguez couldn't have known that this was just the opening move in a deadly game that would test every skill she had learned and push her beyond limits she had never imagined. Hidden in positions around the mountain, enemy snipers had been waiting for exactly this moment, and they were about to turn what should have been a routine assault into a fight for survival. In the distance, Rodriguez caught a glimpse of reflected light from a scope, and her blood ran cold as she realized they were not the only ones with precision shooters in the area. The enemy had been expecting them, and they had prepared a trap that would challenge everything Rodriguez believed about her abilities and her mission. The real battle was about to begin, and she was about to discover just how much she was willing to sacrifice to protect her team. The morning that had started with such promise was about to become the longest day of Rodriguez's military career, and possibly her last. But in that moment, as she prepared for the fight of her life, she drew strength from her training, her teammates, and the knowledge that sometimes one person's courage and skill could make the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. As enemy fire began to rain down on her teammates from multiple directions, Rodriguez knew that the next few hours would determine not just the success of their mission, but whether any of them would make it home alive. The enemy snipers had them in their crosshairs, but they were about to discover that they had underestimated the deadly precision and unwavering determination of the woman watching over her team from the ridge above.